dreaming a new horizon, and a day it all came true. Keller Williams, you make dreams come true. Home sweet home, oh home sweet home, home sweet home.
You're tuned to Russ McClellan and Friends on the real estate show Home Sweet Home. Let's get back to Russ.
Hey, welcome back to Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan and no friends, like I said in the last segment. No, I actually have a lot of friends. I think, man, do we have any friends left after 2020? My goodness. I don't know. Up is down, left is right, right is left. There was an old, I think it was a Gene Wilder movie that this guy rode a horse backwards, walked backwards. His name was backwards, but it feels like that's kind of what happened in 2020. Everything got turned upside down. And here we sit in 2021, February 2021, almost a year. We'll be coming up on a year of the world pandemic called the COVID-19 virus. It's crazy. So in the last couple segments, we talked about where we once were as a community, and I'm primarily talking about my family in the Lake Chelan Valley, but it applies for the most part, it applies to everywhere in North Central Washington. So we talked about the past, we talked about where we're at right now in the second segment with the lack of supply. Now let's talk about demand a little bit, and then maybe put it all together in this last segment before we get Michael Maher with Prime Lending on in the fourth segment. Right now, we're down 75% in inventory in the last year. What does that mean? Well, let me tell you something. There's one thing that I didn't talk about that has changed. Most things have stayed the same. Like the lake's been the lake, sunshine's been sunshine. You know, whether it was now, 1980, 1950, 2005, before the recession, people have always loved coming to Chelan. We touched on the wineries, and the wineries were the first people to really start mass advertising other than real estate brokers, but mainly the tourism industry took off and started driving demand. And as more people visit a place, more people like a place. They go home and tell their friends, man, this is an amazing place to visit. 4 seasons, 300 days of sunshine, 8,000-foot mountain peaks, 55-mile-long lake, crystal clear, the people are cool. It's just incredible recreational opportunity. So there's no debate that that's true. But what has changed is this, that little lovely word called technology. You think about how long we went before the cell phone was invented, right? I mean, I've been in the business long enough that I think the fax machine wasn't being used in the Wenatchee Valley when I started, maybe just starting to be used. And now look at us. We got more power in our phone than all the computers in the gymnasium-sized building when we went to the moon combined. So what does that mean? Well, we always knew that the word telecommute was an issue. We've known that since about mid-90s. But for the most part, it was sophisticated people that could work remotely. It was a very, very select few of high technological, intellectual people, you know, that really knew what they were doing. And then what happens in tech? It gets easier and it gets more affordable. Look at your TV as an example. I remember buying one of the first TVs for my office in downtown Chelan, where I actually put the TV screen up against the window and use it as a display. It was like $3,000 or $4,000, and it weighed about 45,000 pounds. It was crazy. And now you can buy a 75-inch, flat screen for $1,500 or less. It's amazing how good it is too. The quality, 4K. I don't even know what, every other month or something better. Well, what does that mean to real estate? Okay, well, that was allowing people to stay a little longer on their vacations, or maybe come buy a place as a second home and maybe come over, stay an extra day every once in a while. But typically they still had to go back to work in the city where they made the real money. Economically, there's no debate. On the west side of the Cascade Mountains, there's a ton of money, probably more money than most places in the world. And on this side of the mountains, there isn't that level. But we have a good lifestyle. We choose not to go to Wall Street. We choose not to be in Seattle. Well, do you blame anybody else for wanting your lifestyle? Because I don't. You know, heck, that's America, right? I mean, everybody's from somewhere. So you can't really point the finger at other people and say it's bad that they want to live where you live. And I'll tell you why it's a big deal now. The COVID virus has done one thing for sure. If companies wanted to survive, they had to figure out how to allow people to work somewhere else, meaning at home. And if in the beginning, if you think about the baby boomers' parents and the baby boomers, those are people born that started in like 1964. I'm an Xer, right? I'm a baby boomer's kid. Well, the Generation X was kind of that last generation of bricks and mortar was a big deal, right? The big Cadillacs, the big houses, the McMansions, that was kind of all sold to us as bigger is better, Lee Iacocca, Chrysler style, right? Like that was our game plan. And ever since then, people have been kind of going like, why are you making me drive? For example, if I work in Seattle, why do I have to drive when I could get on Zoom? Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but Zoom was around before the pandemic, right? Now everybody that has a computer practically knows what Zoom is from every age group, or FaceTime is another one, or Skype. These things have been around a while. But for the first time, when the corporations were told, look, you're out of business because you're locked down and you're not essential. What was their alternative? They had no choice but to figure out how to let their people work from home. So I call that the forced work adoption of the pandemic, meaning board of directors, presidents, CEOs, stockholders were all in alignment that it's okay to let your people work from home at the highest level, all the way down to insurance brokers, real estate brokers, yoga instructors. I mean, you name it, you can see it online now. Well, that allowed for a whole new demographic shift. So for the first time, can you imagine if you've been slaving away in downtown Seattle and driving from, let's say, Marysville every day on I-5, bumper to bumper? I knew one of my buddies who worked for me once upon a time in Chelan. He drove from Tacoma to from Tacoma to Everett every day. I think he was ready to jump off a bridge after the first year, right? And I'm not joking. I think it was stressful. So you're in 2-hour traffic one way, both ways, 4 hours a day. You're just burning the candle at both ends. You got a family. You're trying to have a connection with your partner, spouse, you name it. All of a sudden, they say to you, hey man, you can live anywhere you want to live, and we'll still pay you the same amount of money we used to pay you. What? Are you going to stay there? Some people will. Some people love it. I love going to the city. I love, at least I used to. It's not quite the same anymore, but I've been doing Seattle home shows there for over 20 years. This is the first year the Seattle home show isn't going to happen. Pretty sad. In a long, long time, generational business there. And because of the pandemic lockdown, obviously it's not going to work. But that gathering of people is used to be how we had to go from here to there to market real estate sometimes. Not anymore. Now we have this unlocked amount of demand that is coming over to buy a primary residence, young families making more money than they've ever made, in some cases, in the history of the world. You think about it. Amazon, Microsoft, headquartered less than 160 miles west of north central Washington. Guy told me one time, because I said, well, cities are going to go down. If all those people move out of the city prices are going to go down, because here's what's happening. People are selling their condo for $1 million, 2-bedroom condo. They're 24 years old. They got a W-2 of $250,000 a year. All right, 24 years old. They sell their condo, they capture $500,000 in equity, they come over here with cash, they're making tons of money, they can work online, and guess what? It's cheap, relatively speaking. So then there's an argument, well, Seattle prices are going to dip. Maybe, like I said at the start of this, nobody knows for sure what's going to happen. Nobody knows for sure. I can tell you this. And a guy told me this at Duke's Restaurant in downtown Seattle, having lunch. He's been there a long time. He's a developer, lender. He said, Russ, the world's a big place and Seattle's a little city. And he said, how many kids in the world that are aging up, meaning they're getting older and then they eventually become executives? How many of those kids know what Microsoft is? How many of them know what Amazon is? And where are those two companies headquartered? Okay, there's a whole lot more to this, but demand's increasing at an increasing rate, and we have a very limited supply. That usually means it's going to appreciate as a microeconomic climate. However, obviously, there's 12 plus million people out of work. There's 3 plus million people in forbearance. If interest rates get jacked up, that can change the world as we know it, too. So there's a lot of economic variables. But the one thing about real estate that's different than the stock market, it's not day trading. Most things take time. So my foreseeable future is it's going to continue to be strong. We have a microeconomic climate within a macroeconomic climate, even if things nationwide get difficult. However, insane 17% appreciation across the board is too much, and I don't believe it's sustainable. So be careful. Try not to live above your means. Try to live on the low and invest on the high. I hope you enjoyed that kind of past, present, and future show. Obviously, you can get a hold of us anytime at 888-0038. You can send me an email at russ@frontlinechelan.com. Happy to answer all your questions. You can always text me on my cell anytime, 519-470-2416. We'll be right back with the fourth segment with Michael Maher and Prime Lending. Talk to you soon.